The Juggernaut. He's had some interesting portrayals throughout the years, and in the case of the movies, some very interesting portrayals. But for fans of Juggernaut, they know this guy is the tank you want on your side. So, let's take a look at our top 10 superpowers you didn't know Juggernaut has. Number 10. He can punch through time. You guys remember playing Portal, and when you wanted to get an insane jump going, you'd put 2 portals in an infinite loop and just keep building up your speed? Yeah, Juggernaut can basically do that with his fists, which is a mod to Portal I would love to see. But yeah, Juggernaut can punch his way through space and time, which would effectively allow him to use that in conjunction with his other abilities to effectively use physics to just decimate somebody. Juggernaut is way overpowered now that I'm thinking about it. Number 9. Create raw material at will. Yeah, this is a weird one. So, the Juggernaut can basically change matter to any form he sees fit. He's been known to take a rock and turn it into a giant boulder. We've even seen the Juggernaut do this with his helmet, where he can effectively just use any raw materials he can find to recreate it. Pretty much makes disposing of his helmet only a temporary measure. Although, he's not vulnerable to psychic attacks like he used to be, so that helmet is a bit more superfluous now. Speaking of which, number 8. Immunity to psychic attacks. In the 2014 edition of Amazing X-Men number 19, Cyttorak grants Juggernaut even more power than he previously had. And one of the biggest benefits of that power-up is that he is no longer vulnerable to psychic attacks without his helmet. And that pretty much crosses off Juggernaut's one major weakness. This guy is getting more and more godlike as this list goes on, which makes sense considering his next power. Number 7. Immortality. Yeah, the Juggernaut is effectively immortal. He's famous for being someone who cannot be stopped, but the fact is, he literally can't be. That dude can't be poisoned, he doesn't age, heck, he once came back from being reduced to a skeleton. Killing the Juggernaut, as long as he's connected to the gem, is seemingly an impossible task. And it's not like he's gonna get winded either, which brings us to our next item. Number 6. Has no need to breathe. In addition to basically being immortal, Juggernaut also has no need to breathe. So you could drop him into the bottom of the ocean or leave him in space, and all you'll be doing is giving him a longer walk towards you, and I guarantee you, he's going to be pissed the entire time. But what else are you gonna do when you can't kill him? Number 5. Force Absorbent. So, you can't stop the Juggernaut, but what if you hit him hard enough? What if you came at him with everything you had? Well, that still wouldn't work because the Juggernaut can just absorb the force. Thor tried to do this in Thor number 411 by throwing Mjolnir at him, but it just reflected back at Thor with the Juggernaut holding onto it. Congratulations, you've just sent an indestructible rage machine hurtling towards you with your weapon of choice. Welp. Number 4. Transform matter and energy. In Amazing Spider-Man number 629, Juggernaut obtained the powers of Captain Universe, which included the ability to transform matter and energy. William Wynn, who had been Captain Universe, offended the Enigma Force, which decided that Juggernaut was a better choice to be a hero, and gifted him with that power. Juggernaut would use that power to repair the tectonic plates in New York, and in this instance was actually deemed a hero. Number 3. He doesn't require food or water. In addition to not needing to breathe, which means he doesn't get tired, he also has no need to replenish his energy with food and water. That means there is no moment where the Juggernaut needs to stop, he simply does so of his own accord. And I can't imagine he wants to do that very often. The Gem of Cyttorak would be a lot more useful in the hands of a hero, just saying. Number 2. Create portals to other dimensions. Like I mentioned earlier, he can punch through space and time, but he can also punch through to other dimensions. After obtaining a second gem, Juggernaut became so powerful that he broke through the space-time barriers to attack the Trion. So he's an unkillable, untouchable, angry, fast, dimension-warping monster. I'm gaining new respect for the Juggernaut. So let's look at his last power. Number 1. He can dig through anything. Yeah, I wanted to end on a fun note, partially because this was an amusing power to think about, and partially because it reminded me of Sloth from Fullmetal Alchemist. That said, Juggernaut is able to just dig endlessly without getting tired, and even getting empowered by any of the falling debris around him. So he just keeps going and is endlessly sustained by the gem. Jeez. Well, that is our top 10 Juggernaut powers list. So, let's say hypothetically these powers weren't going to totally corrupt you. What would you do with these powers? Me? I would probably punch some new subway tunnels. Although, I guess if I could just super speed punch my way across town, I wouldn't really need subways? I don't know. Maybe I'll just chuck a big rock and fly that around. Anyway, have a good one.